Hi, I'm Carol Ann Tutera. My friends call me Kat, and I've been referred to as an ambassador for aging. We're going to talk about mothers, if you're a mother, or I'm sure you have a mother, and how you have aged with an aging mother, yourself aging as a mother. We really want to hear from you. With Mother's Day coming up, we'd love to get involved with the topic and start the chatter and crack open a conversation about your feelings being a mom and towards your mom. So we've got that big topic to cover today, and we have Miss Danny on the phone as well, who's going to help chatter along with me about being a mom. I know.
And a grandmom.
And a grandmom. I am a new grandmom. I like to be called Mimi myself. So, Miss Danny, share your perspective about being a mom and a grandmother.
I think that perspective has really changed a lot. When you first have a child, you think you know everything. And it's funny how much smarter your mom becomes as you get older, and especially as you start to have children. I know for myself, once I had kids, all of a sudden I found myself going to my mom for everything. Things that I would never in a million years imagine. And there's this old cliche, that people are always afraid they're going to turn into their mom. But I remember, and I'm sure you do, the first time you said something to your kids, and in your mind you're saying, oh my goodness, my mom used to say that to me and I hated it. And you find yourself saying that. And I think it's a very interesting transformation that people make as they have children, and then even as they have grandchildren. Wouldn't you feel the same way? Or maybe you don't. I don't know. That's just me.
I do. I'd heard people always say how much more fun grandchildren were. And I didn't really understand that until I had my own. But I come from a family of 5 kids. Personally, I thought that was way too many people around me. I had one son, and I loved it. We're very close. And we would spend, being a single mom, we would spend Friday nights making pizza. It was our thing, and watching our Friday night shows. Dad was in another state, and I wouldn't trade it for the world of being a single mom. I absolutely loved it. And then he married, lives on the East Coast. They have a baby, 18 months old, a real cutie patootie. And thank God for Instagram, because that's how I see her daily, of what she's doing and how she's growing. And when I'm with her, she's the love of my life. She just lights me up like no other. It truly is a special meaning. And I know that you are around your grandkids a lot. And how fortunate are you?
Yeah, I'm very blessed. I lived, as I said in a previous podcast, I had lived with my grandchildren until recently when I remarried, and that's been a transition. But so I have a very different relationship. A lot of my friends sometimes can be a little critical of that relationship because I kind of took over a little bit of the parenting. And I'm now, the good part now that I don't live with them and I'm not with them every day, I miss them terribly, but I can be more of a grandmother, where before I was doing a lot of the parenting. And I know we just talked about, you and I, a study recently, I think, about how it came back that from the age of 25 to 35, more and more people are moving back in with their parents, and there's this whole generation of people moving back in and who have children. So that was kind of reassuring that it wasn't just me.
Right.
But, it's a very different relationship. I was definitely more in a parental role, and that kind of sucked, because one of the great things about having grandchildren is being able to, you have all the perks but none of the responsibility. But when I was living with them and you see them every day, you have that responsibility. So now I can kind of step back a little bit, and I think that strengthens my daughter's relationship a little bit, because I'm not co-parenting anymore. But I'm sure there's tons of grandparents out there, men and women, who live in the house with their kids and with their grandkids and kind of have that battle going back and forth. It's like, that's an old saying, you have two women in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm, right.
It's not always a good thing, So I think that's definitely helped. But, I love my grandchildren to pieces. And it's funny, as my grandchildren have gotten older, mine are significantly older than your little one. My grandson's 8 and my granddaughter's 4. As they get older, my daughter and I get closer again. It's funny, when you have a daughter, sometimes they come apart a little bit. They have their kids just like I did with my mom, and then you realize, wow, Mom was smarter than I thought. And, she calls me constantly about, they did this, what should I do? They did this. And I'm like, a couple of years ago, I was not that smart. Now all of a sudden I've gained all this wisdom.
Right.
But it's nice because you can grow that bond back with your children. And I'm very fortunate and very blessed because I do get to see them often and I get to see my kids. But one of the things, too, that I think is important is that I think we live in a very different society. I think we've also talked about how you want to put yourself first and your needs first, but a lot of people don't make the time for their kids once they're out of the house. A lot of people, and that's just never been me, a lot of people, they feel like once their kids are out of the house, they're kind of on their own. For me, I make an active effort to see my kids on a regular, consistent basis, even as adults, because it's important to me. Not everybody feels that way, but for me, I know that's a big deal. And I know that you do that too. I know you go out of your way, especially with that distance, to make sure that you see your son and your daughter-in-law and your new grandbaby pretty regularly, right?
I think it's extremely healthy and important to keep that bond as a parent-child, even after they've married. I know it was challenging being replaced by a wife. I honestly had issues with that because that's what we are as moms. When our son's married, we are replaced, and the daughter-in-law comes in as the primary female in their lives. And
usurper.
Yeah, and then her mother becomes the main mother. I'm no longer really the mother. So it was a real eye-opener and shocker, and it took me a while to adjust to that. But now that I've stepped back and stepped out, it's great. I really enjoy the part of where I am now, of being better friends with my son and daughter-in-law, and being able to spoil the granddaughter as best I can. And I think
it's great. Yeah, it's great when you can have that authentic adult relationship with your children.
Right, and I think spoiling takes on different meaning for different people. I like to spoil them with time and attention. Some people think that providing a gift is so much more important. But I was raised that way, and it didn't fill the void of an actual parent. So
no, it's so true. Yeah, and I think as time goes by, I remember, I was very blessed. I had grandparents and great-grandparents alive up until the time I was a late teenager. And it was very interesting to see the different dynamics. I had one grandmother who every time she saw me, she would shove money in my hand or pocket. Right. It was about giving me that gift. Then I had another grandparent who all they wanted to do was teach me how to cook and spend time with me. And, you love them both, but the memories that you make with the one that actually spends the time with you and creates those experiences,
right,
I think are the ones that are really lasting.
Absolutely, they are. I have wonderful memories of being with one of my grandmothers, spent a lot of time with her. I picked up my love of baseball from one of my grandmothers. So I have to say I had some really nice female role models growing up from the grandparent point of view. My mother was a giver. She still is a giver. She gives of her time as much as she can to everybody else. And I've seen that in extended family members of giving back as a female to the community. And I think that's important that we do that. I know that earlier you brought up a great point of view of how to be a mom but still retain who you are. And how do you do that, Danny?
I think it's gotten easier as my children have gotten older. I'm really enjoying now aspects. For example, my son just bought a new home recently, and he's having all these challenges. And he went from being very, very busy all the time, and he works tremendous hours, and he's got a new girlfriend. Last thing he has is time for mom. So I always make a point to go and visit him. He manages a restaurant. I go and visit him at his restaurant at least once a week, because then I know at least I'll see him. And, it was funny how, I guess, last Mother's Day, he wrote in card exactly that. Mom, don't think I don't notice that you come and see me every week, that you take the time and come and see me. And I just really just assumed that he didn't get it. And, I think just being who I am, not worrying about if I'm stepping on toes all the time, and not, I've stepped back in the sense of not trying to over-mother him, because he's a grown man, which you have a tendency, regardless of how old your children get, they're still your children.
They're still our babies.
Yeah, they're always our babies. So, and I think that's at any age, and even it's funny, my older relatives, I have an aunt that's 92, and she'll say to me, I'll say, oh, the baby. She says, you mean your grandson who's going to be 9? I'm like, yes. So it's just, they're always your babies, no matter what age. But, going back to my son, I think making the time, but being authentic to myself is doing what I want, not worrying about what other people. I've had people say, well, why do you do that? Why are you, if he really wanted to see you, he would make the time. And I'm like, well, I remember what it's like to be that age and trying to create a life for yourself. And, it's, as time goes on, this is a much more challenging environment financially, just in general with everything, and dating. It doesn't matter what other people think. It doesn't matter if people think it's weird that I go and I sit in his restaurant and eat once a week, even if I have to do it by myself.
Yeah,
I'll go and do it just so I can see him. And, and it's funny, but the people that work around him, after me doing this has been going on for a while, they love it. They're like, Josh, your mom's here. So that's a great way that I kind of don't worry about what other people think. I do what my instincts tell me to do. And ultimately, something that I thought was important to me to do because I miss my son and I want to keep that connection, he noticed, and it was important to him.
Yeah, how special for you both. You both received something out of it.
Right, and I just think that goes back to kind of answering your question about sometimes you just have to go with your gut as a mom. I think regardless of what age they are, I think you just have to go with your gut and do what you think is best and what feels good. And if it's being received well, I mean, you don't want to be this overbearing, stalker mom. But if it feels good and it feels like the right thing to do, then just do it. And nothing done in kindness is ever a bad thing.
Right.
Is it?
No, absolutely not.
Anything you do for your children is always a great thing to do. So I think that's challenging, and I think that you and I have talked about it before. Just as women, as you age, what is being a mom and making that transition from being a mom to a grandma? That's hard because all of a sudden you're a grandma, and then there's these preconceptions of, did you have to start knitting?
Right.
What does that mean? Do you have to start doing all these grandmotherly things? What does it really mean to be a grandmother?
Right.
And I had grandchildren very young, and I didn't fit into that mold, and I felt really awkward with it. It made me uncomfortable at first because I loved having grandbabies, but I'm like, does this mean I'm old now? Like, who cares if that means? It's not a matter of making you old because you have grandchildren or if you have children. It's just another transition in your life.
Right. Now, I had a completely different experience than you because being the single mom, and then my son was in his 30s when his stepfather passed away, who he was very close with. And just recently, I've been taking more care of myself and not him. So he's had to learn how to appreciate his mother becoming herself. So I basically am also mothering myself now because I gave so much of my time to everybody. I gave to the job. I gave to my son. I gave to my late husband. I was giving to everybody, and I forgot all about me. And I think as mothers, we tend to do that.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I don't think I've evolved to that point yet. Hopefully I will. I think that's definitely a stage of development that we get to at some point. I think every person, they get to a point where that internal focus shifts. I don't think I've gotten there, but I think it's a healthy shift. I think it's a natural shift. And unfortunately, sometimes those shifts happen, and then you have to, you have to start taking care of your parents, your mom or dad, as they get elderly. So sometimes it shifts from, being a mom to your kids to now being a caregiver for your aging parents.
Right.
So it's hard to kind of squeeze in time for yourself in between. So it's great that you're able to do that for yourself now. Like I said, I haven't really gotten there yet, and it's something I try to do more. I try to put more focus on myself at times, but my daughter's a single mom, as you know, and she's got 2 kids, and she works really hard, and she's in school and giving it, the best effort. But as you and I both know, that's very challenging.
Correct.
And so you find yourself feeling that, I remember what that was like. Let me go and do this for her, or let me try to make it easier. And in a way, you're helping. In a way, you're also enabling.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, and then you're really not thinking of yourself. So it's this constant flux, I think, of going back and forth for being a mom, being a grandmom, and being yourself. And then if you have aging parents, dealing with that aspect of it as your parents get older. But to me, I think the thing with Mother's Day approaching that I find very interesting is this commercialization of it, and kind of taking away really, the importance of mom, and also just not it all being about gifts.
Right.
Not being about, let's go and get her, I think the average mom, if we asked our audience listening what they want for Mother's Day, what do you think the average person would say is the top 5 things they want?
Well, from my perspective, it's time with your child. It's something.
Okay.
It's something handmade. I love the gifts my son would make in school, and give those to me. Those mean a lot to me.
Mm-hmm.
Something.
Yeah, I agree.
Something that touches the heart is so much more meaningful than a purchase gift. And if you're going to give me a card, do me a favor, write something in it that means something. That to me is important.
Well, I'm one of these anti-card people. I almost never get someone a card because I just feel like I want to say that to them, or I'll text it to them. I just don't like cards, and people are out there, what do you mean you don't like cards? I'm just not a big card person. But I agree with you. If I'm going to go buy a card, I better put something in it because it's got to have meaning. To me, I think sometimes people use cards as an excuse to not really share what they're feeling or what they're. I've kind of checked that box. I got you a card. It's done. Here you go.
Right.
And they're not really. There's no thought behind that sometimes.
I completely
agree with you.
Yep. Totally agree.
I think that's really important. But and I think that spending time is one of the most critical parts. I think, 2 things. I think most moms, if you ask them what they want for Mother's Day, it's probably spending quality time with my child, and also spending quality time by myself.
Oh, now there you go. Didn't think of that one because my son's on the East Coast, so that's probably one
but for
that a lot of women like.
Yeah, a lot of younger women, still have children at home. They're like, okay, yeah, this is really nice. For us, we want to spend because our children aren't with us. But if you're living with your kids every day, because you can be and that's another interesting thing to note is that there's a lot of women that are in their late 40s, early 50s that still have children at home, sometimes very young children.
Right.
And they're dealing with all these changes in their body, and they still have kids, and they're still a mom, and I have a friend of mine who had children in college, and then she got pregnant. With her, one child was a senior in high school, one was starting as a freshman in college, and she got pregnant. I looked at her and said, "Are you insane?" And she goes, "No, I love being a mom." And now she's menopausal, and she has a child. This is all these years later, but she's, I guess, mid-50s, and her children already have children. She has grandchildren, and she has I guess he's starting high school now. So that's something to be said too. Is what does it mean to be a mom when you're a mom for a younger child and you have grandchildren that are about the same age or close?
Right.
That can be challenging.
Well, and I've always felt that children keep us young.
Yes.
So interact, play with them, and enjoy them as much as you can, because I feel we get so much from them as they get from us. And I think the opposite is true of the mothers who are older than us. I gather so much knowledge and wisdom from women who are older than me that I enjoy spending time with them. And I know that your mother had some great sayings that you've been sharing with me lately, and how lucky for you.
Yes, yeah. I mean, my mom had some, it's very sad. It's kind of like I said earlier, I didn't realize some of the things my mom that said were a value until I had children. And then when I became a grandparent, I didn't realize it then. And then my mom passed recently, and then I find myself wanting to ask her questions still now at my age, and she's not there. So, and this is, for me, as you and I have discussed, this is my first Mother's Day without my mom, so it's hard. It's going to be very hard. But, my mom will always be with me. But I think that no matter how old we get, that wisdom and that need to talk to your mom and get that, that support, I guess, is the best word from her on anything is something that I don't think it matters how old you are. I think that's always going to be there for most people. So, yeah, I think that it's just an invaluable resource of moms. And that's not to, we're talking about moms a lot, and then, dads as well. There's a lot of dads out there that are serving as dads and moms.
Correct.
They're taking both roles on. And, kudos to them, because it's hard enough, but it's hard enough when the women are doing as a single mom, but there's a lot of single dads doing the same thing. So I think that people need to be open-minded to that. I think I had an instance, we went in a store the other day, and someone said, there's all these things you can buy for people for Mother's Day. And my husband just looked at me, and I kind of cringed because my mom just passed. And I said, well, should they just be saying that to everybody? He's like, well, they don't know that your mom just died. And I'm like, yeah, but they're just trying to sell stuff. And it's the same thing, too, with people, dads going in who maybe are single dads. And everybody's pushing Mother's Day. I think there's got to be recognition out there for people that are, dealing in strained situations or maybe doing both roles. I think that, people should be aware of that as well. I think that's a very important thing.
Well, and let's not forget people who have challenging relationships with their mothers.
Yes.
And they find the substitute female to be their mother. And I think kudos to them that they've actually been able to find a role model that they can be close to, because a mother-daughter relationship can be stressful at times, can be challenging, can be full of love and light. And we've got to find the one person or a couple of them that we look up to and that we admire. And I personally feel it doesn't have to be your mother. I think there are a lot of women out there who you can find to be that female position in your life that you get your advice from, that you listen to, that you share your life and journey from. So I think there's a large population of females out there who have that circumstance. So I want to tip my hat off to them for acknowledging them and saying, good for you.
Yes, there are. I know for myself, my aunt never had any children of her own, and all growing up, as you said, my relationship growing up, teenage daughter, very combative with my mom at times, and I would run to her. It was my mom's sister, and she was always this kind, calming, source. And she was younger, so she was a little more hip and cooler to me at the time. And she's always served as a great resource, a balance for me. So I think that it's important for people, if they don't have a mom or their relationship with their mom isn't always the best, like you said, it's great if they have somebody out there that they can go to that can, it's almost like a mentorship, but a loving one.
And that's a great way to put it, is a mentorship.
Yeah. That's the kind of the way I've seen it. It's somebody that cares, nurtures, and wants you to grow and is there looking out for your best interests. And you can call them mom, aunt, grandmother, dad. I don't think it's just somebody who's in that role. I mean, did you have somebody like that growing up?
I did not have anyone like that growing up, but in my first marriage, I had a wonderful mother-in-law who I'm still very close to even after we've been divorced 30 years.
Wow.
Maybe more. Yeah. Who I'm still very close with. So I feel very blessed to have that type of relationship with her where I know I can call her and talk to her and get feedback and information and feel the love of having a female in my life. So I feel good about that.
Yeah, that says a lot about her and a lot about you, that you both, I mean, a lot of times when people go through divorce and stuff, they sever all those ties. It's amazing that you've been able to keep those ties strong for all those years. That's, kudos to you for that.
Well, my ex and I joked about how we should have been on Oprah years ago as probably the first family who divorced very amicably. Everybody stayed friends. I was invited to his second marriage. His parents, my ex-mother and father-in-law, took in my late husband as a member of the family. We were invited to all the same holiday parties because we all lived in the same town. So we were one big, extended, happy family. And I'm also still with my ex and his wife and their kids, and we all do everything together. So it's really nice. Everybody's very friendly about it.
Yeah, and how wonderful for your son, because it makes it so much easier for the kids when everybody gets along.
Right. So the show,
yeah, it definitely does.
The show is about aging gracefully. So as a mother, how do you feel you've aged gracefully?
I can't say that I know that I have.
You might be surprised.
I think it's a work in progress. How have I aged gracefully? I think probably the biggest way that I can see myself aging gracefully is I don't want to be as immodest to say that I'm wise, but I think in the last 5 to 10 years, especially since my grandson was born, I think I've gained a lot of wisdom. I think that as a mom, a single mom, being frazzled and overworked, and then you get a little bit older, and you learn to hold your tongue more. And you learn to kind of not sweat the little things and not, not worry. Okay, you could be the cleanest person in the world, but it's more important to spend time with your children than worry about did they clean their room at that second, or the dishes will get done. Let's spend some quality time with the kids right now. Putting those other superficial things that are important, but they really, at the end of the day, don't make the difference. I think learning those things is just something that you kind of, as you age, and it's made me a mellower person. I don't overreact. I don't yell. I mean, my kids used to joke that I'd have this thing where if I got angry with them, I'd raise my fingers, 1, 2, 3. They said they were scared to know what might happen if I ever got to 3. And I look at myself like, okay, I'm not that scary. And they're like, yeah, you are, Mom.
It was the look. You have the look.
And, you look at yourself in the mirror and you'll talk to your friends. You're like, am I that scary? They're like, nah, you're not that scary. And your kids are cringing in fear. And I'm like, I never did anything bad. Like, why are you so scared? They're like, because you just looked at us with that look, like you said, or we were afraid you were going to get angry with us or disappointed. And that's when I started to see that, that I was raising good kids, that they were more worried about disappointing me and not living up to something, which is a good and bad thing. But I think mellowing out a little bit is probably the best thing that I've done in the last 10 years as I've gotten older. I think it's better for your blood pressure.
Good for you.
And everything else, but I just think you have to just kind of chill sometimes and not sweat the little stuff. And I think that when you're in the trenches of momhood, with your little ones at home or even teenagers at home, it's really hard to do.
It's very challenging to do. So the flip side of that then, since you're such a busy mother, grandmother, and you work, tell me, where do you find your joy and excitement?
Where do I find my joy and excitement? I think we talked about this on one of the other podcasts, is that I like to exercise and row, and I'm not doing as much of that as I would like to, but I definitely am trying to take time. The other day I took, I guess, a good hour and just walked. I walked through a mall. I didn't buy anything. I wasn't there to buy anything. I just wanted to walk and look around and just have that time by myself, away from my phone, away from my computers, away from, of course I'm surrounded by people, but not people that I have to interact with really. And it was fun. It was nice. It was distressing. So just kind of removing myself away from stressful situations and just having that alone time, whether it's exercising or walking around someplace, even a mall, I find that very calming. And I wouldn't say that it gives me joy, but I think it puts me on a better path to find joy and excitement if you're calmer. So yeah, that's pretty much where I am. I think finding joy and excitement for different people is a project. I think you have to get there, but so I'm kind of getting there right now.
Good deal.
And how about you?
Well, I've got one last question for you.
Okay. Oh, no, another one. Okay.
Another one. What's the best day you remember being a mom? What did it look like?
The best day. Oh man, there's so many good days. I have two really good days that I remember. I'll tell you both. One was my son was playing soccer, and I was a soccer mom, and he made his first field goal. And as soon as he made his field goal, the first thing he did was raise up his arm and scream my name and ran off the field to me to hug me. Because he was little. He was like 7. That was probably one of the most joyous moments because he just wanted to share that accomplishment and that excitement with me. And his coach said, "That's great, but you got to get back on the field. You got to go keep playing." But I remember that all these years later. I mean, he's 31 now. I remember that. And probably the second greatest joy was my daughter, watching her have her first baby, being in the room, being by her side. They say it's an amazing experience when you have your own children, but you're so involved in the physical process of it. You can't really enjoy it. No one, I don't think, enjoys childbirth, but when I was there with my daughter watching this, it was one of the most emotional, joyous experience with my daughter watching her have the baby I've ever had. And obviously then with her daughter, the same thing as well. But with my grandson, because I guess it was the first time, I can't even explain the type of joy unless someone has actually done it that you feel watching your child have a child and being there and being by their side and helping them and watch this other life come in and your legacy is continuing. It's just such an amazing feeling.
Oh, how nice. How wonderful. How wonderful for you.
Thank you. And how about you?
For me, my perspective of authentic aging has been the fact that I can starting to relax into who I am and embracing aging by allowing my gray hair to come out, by allowing my son to make his own mistakes. I find my joy and excitement of being outside and walking by myself and listening to music. Absolutely love that.
It's about you.
It's about me. It's all about me.
Right.
The best day are truly my memories of the Friday nights with my son. That's my special moments of my life. As I've mentioned before, I wouldn't trade it for the world. So having that one-on-one alone time with my son on a Friday night was super, super special. So thank you for asking.
You're welcome, and I'm sure if he listens to this podcast, he'll remember that as being one of the most joyous experiences in his life as well.
Let's hope so. So I really would look forward to your great feedback if you're out there listening. You can listen to the podcast and tag us and link to us at Adventures in Aging. Email me at cataga1818 gmail.com. Until we meet again, be happy, be safe, and be groovy.